From the moment Daniel Cooper stepped into the brightly lit grocery store, carrying the weight of a long week on his tired shoulders, he didn't expect his entire understanding of strength, courage, and second chances to be rewritten in the checkout line. But the universe has a way of placing unexpected people on our path, sometimes just when we need them most, sometimes when they need us, and sometimes both. What happened that evening began with nothing more unusual than the gentle tremble of a cashier's hands, but the truth behind it would leave him completely undone, reminding him that even the people we pass every day are often fighting battles we know nothing about. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet ways strangers can change one another's lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more people with stories that matter. Daniel wasn't the type to draw attention to himself. Life had humbled him early and deeply. A widowed father at 33, raising a curious 6-year-old daughter named Lily, he carried around a silent ache that never fully eased. He had become a master of functioning through grief. Waking early to get Lily dressed, juggling 2 jobs, scraping together moments of rest between bills, responsibilities, and unexpected breakdowns. Car problems, school fees, growing children needing new shoes faster than he could keep up with. The grocery store had become his quiet battlefield, the place where he constantly calculated the balance between what they needed and what they could live without. He moved through the aisles with practiced focus, gathering only the essentials and never letting himself linger too long on the wants he had no room to afford. That night was no different. The winter wind had been harsh outside, biting at his face as he hurried from the car with Lily's small hand tucked tightly in his. She had been quiet in the store, humming to herself while picking out her favorite cereal and smiling as she helped him place items in the cart. Daniel's heart squeezed every time she looked up at him with her late mother's eyes. He wanted to give her everything, but trying to be both parents at once was a constant tug-of-war between hope and exhaustion. When they reached the checkout line, Daniel took a slow breath and braced himself for the total he already knew would sting. But before he could begin unloading items, his attention snagged on something small yet unmistakable. The cashier's hands were shaking. Not a subtle tremor, an unsteady, noticeable trembling that made even the simplest scan of a box seem like a heavy effort. She couldn't have been more than 22, with soft auburn hair pulled into a messy braid and dark circles beneath her eyes that suggested she hadn't slept well in days. Her name tag read Emma, the letters slightly faded at the corners. She offered him a tired smile, but even that seemed to cost her something. As she reached for the first item, the tremble worsened, and Daniel felt an unexpected jolt of concern. He had spent enough time caring for Lily, watching for fevers, coughs, the smallest signs of discomfort, that noticing someone in distress had become instinctive. But this was different. This young woman wasn't sick in the way children caught colds. The tremble seemed rooted deeper. Fear, trauma, exhaustion. Something silently clawing its way through her composure. He didn't want to pry, didn't want to embarrass her, but as the trembling grew so pronounced that she nearly dropped a jar, instinct moved faster than hesitation. His voice came out gentle, barely above a whisper. "Are you all right?"
The question hung between them like a fragile ornament, delicate and dangerous. Emma stiffened almost imperceptibly, as though the simple act of being noticed cracked something inside her. She swallowed, nodded too quickly, and forced another brittle smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Daniel felt a flicker of guilt, but also a stronger current of worry. His life had taught him that sometimes people needed someone, anyone, to ask. He let it go for the moment, not pressing further, continuing to place groceries on the belt while Lily chattered about the pink marshmallows in her cereal. But the unease lingered. He watched as Emma's hands trembled with every item, watched her blink hard as if trying to push back tears she didn't have the strength for, watched the way her shoulders curled inward like someone bracing for impact. As the last item passed across the scanner, Emma paused, fingers gripping the edge of the counter. Daniel saw her chest rise sharply, the way people breathed when they were seconds from breaking. And he couldn't pretend anymore. He asked softly again, "Why are your hands shaking?" He hadn't meant for the question to sound so direct, but it slipped out with genuine concern. Emma froze. For a moment, she looked like she might crumble right there, and Daniel regretted it instantly, preparing to apologize. But then she exhaled, a trembling, hollow breath, and the truth spilled out of her with heartbreaking simplicity. She admitted she had just begun her first shift after escaping an abusive relationship. She had left with nothing but a backpack after enduring months of fear and emotional torment. Her shaking, she whispered, wasn't a medical condition, it was trauma. Fear that he would find her. Fear that she wasn't strong enough to rebuild her life. Fear that any moment her fragile courage would collapse under the weight of memories she was desperately trying to outrun. Daniel felt the ground shift under him. He had expected maybe stress, maybe nerves from a new job, but not this. Not the quiet devastation of someone whose life had been shattered behind closed doors. In that instant, the grocery store noise faded. The bright fluorescence dimmed. The world seemed to pause, holding its breath for her. Emma wiped at her eyes quickly, apologizing through choked breaths, saying she shouldn't bring personal problems into work, that she didn't want to make customers uncomfortable, that she was trying, really trying to hold herself together because she needed this job. She had nowhere else to go, no one to lean on, and no safety net if she failed. Daniel felt something inside him crack wide open. Loss had carved him hollow, but it had also made him more attuned to the hidden wounds people carried. He knew too well what it looked like when someone fought alone. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice, telling her she had nothing to apologize for, that strength didn't always look like standing tall. Sometimes it looked like trembling, but still choosing to stand anyway. He told her she wasn't alone, even if it felt like it, even if the world had tried to convince her otherwise. Emma's eyes welled again, not with fear this time, but with the stunned, fragile relief of someone who had braced for judgment and instead received kindness.
The moment passed only when someone in line cleared their throat impatiently. Embarrassed, Emma returned to scanning, but her hands were shaking less now. Not gone, but softened, like the tremors no longer owned her. When Daniel tried paying, his card was declined. His heart sank. He had miscalculated the week's expenses. He muttered an apology and began sorting items to return, humiliation warming his face. Before he could remove a single item, Emma reached over and quietly pressed the employee discount key. Then, with a shaky breath, pulled out her own wallet and slipped a folded bill into the register. She whispered that nobody deserved to walk home without the groceries they needed, especially not a father doing everything he could for his daughter. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. She owed him nothing. She had almost nothing. Yet in her own brokenness, she chose generosity. He tried to refuse. She insisted. He tried again. She shook her head, eyes steady despite the tremor in her hands, and for the first time that evening, he realized she wasn't weak at all. She was surviving, and survival required a kind of courage that left him speechless. He thanked her with a sincerity he hadn't felt in months. Lily handed Emma one of her stickers, telling her she looked like she needed something happy. The young woman smiled, truly smiled, and it softened her entire face. Days passed, and Daniel couldn't shake the encounter. Emma had disappeared from the checkout line the next time he visited. He worried. He asked about her. On the fourth visit, a manager finally told him she had been let go. Too distracted, too emotional,
too unstable for customer-facing work. In other words, too human. Daniel felt anger burn low in his chest. She had been punished for surviving something most people couldn't imagine. He found a way to contact her through a mutual connection at the store. When she hesitantly agreed to meet at a small cafe, she looked different, tired, fragile, unsure. She admitted she had been sleeping in a temporary shelter, terrified of going back to her abuser, but equally terrified of running out of options. Daniel made a choice in that moment, not out of pity, but out of recognition. He had once been the person drowning silently, needing someone to reach out before he sank. Someone had done that for him years ago after his wife's passing, helping him find stable ground again. Now it was his turn. He connected her with a local women's support group, helped her apply for safer housing, and spoke to a friend who ran a community center that could offer temporary work. Slowly, cautiously, Emma began to rebuild. She attended counseling sessions. She learned to breathe without fear. She rediscovered her confidence piece by piece, like shards of stained glass forming a new mosaic. Months later, Daniel saw her again, this time behind a desk at the community center, welcoming families with a steady voice and hands that no longer trembled. When their eyes met, she rushed around the desk and hugged him tightly, thanking him for not turning away when most people would have. She told him his kindness had been the first moment she felt seen, the first moment she realized her story wasn't over. Daniel walked away that day, feeling something shift inside him. A reminder that healing rarely comes in sweeping gestures, but in small acts of courage and compassion. A single father and a broken young woman had crossed paths in a grocery store, and both walked away changed. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep stories of hope, kindness, and humanity alive. Before you go, please drop a comment below, even a single heart emoji, to support anyone silently fighting their battles today.